Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Beth Hawley with the Arizona Association of Realtors, and we're pleased to have you back for the session 4 of the Art of Leadership, Art of Influence series with Dave Richards. We've asked that you dial in on your phone for this session today. If you'd like to speak, click on the raise hand icon and we'll open your mic, or feel free to participate through the question box. So welcome, and let's get started.
All right. Well, thank you, Beth, and thank you all for joining us here again for increasing your influence. So 6 ways, and we're on our 4th way of increasing your influence. And so again, thank you for just sharing your time with us as we dive in. And so as Beth reminded, certainly we're looking for as much interaction. If you haven't been able to call in, still use the question box, and Beth will read those comments or questions that's there, but we'd love to hear from you also. So please make sure that you look to join in with it also. So I put forth a couple questions on the Facebook page. We'll go over them a little bit later today. And so hopefully you've got some answers. You've been able to look at that. And you've also been able to download the actual document, the file for our session today. So the worksheet that for us to go over. So again, just a reminder, try to be present. I know that it's difficult in busy times. We're in lunchtime, so maybe this is an easier time for you to kind of earmark and do the do not disturb, because again, as I posted earlier though, your time is your most valuable commodity. It's not your money. It's not anything else that you've got. It is your time. And so please make sure that you take time to invest in yourself, and this is a great opportunity. Hopefully you see value in doing that with us too. So earlier Tuesday, or on Tuesday, we are in our 3rd session, we talked about integrity. We talked about how important it is, how we need to make sure that we do the little things, because integrity is what allows others to trust us. And that trust is the single most important factor in both personal and business relationships. I challenged you to think about ethics, and that it's not really a business and a personal ethics, but it's just ethics. It's how you live, right? That you live consistently, both from a business and a personal basis. That your integrity, your word, is important on either way, and that you maintain that. This week, what we're going to go into is empowerment. You know, empowerment is a very important part of influence and in leadership that's there. Empowerment is actually difficult sometimes, and we're going to go through kind of what it is and what it's not, and why there may be some barriers that's there. You see, great things, Mark Twain shared that great things can happen when you don't care who gets the credit. You know, I agree with this comment from Mark Twain, but I would take it one step further, in that I would say greater things, or the greatest things, happen when you give others the credit. You see, only secure leaders can give powers to others, and that's really what empowerment's about. Secure leaders are the only ones. You have to have self-confidence, as self-confidence is critical in developing your ability to empower others. Theodore Roosevelt was quoted in saying that the best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. You see, there's a big difference between, again, giving tasks to individuals or micromanaging it versus true empowerment, which is what we're going to get into. So before we go into this particular area of actual barriers that I've got to share with you, I'd like to actually take a moment to have you reflect or share with those questions that I shared earlier in Facebook, though, that asked you, though, what are the fears? What do you think the fears are for leaders to hold tightly to power and prevent them from actually transferring both authority or empowerment to those that they're leading and influencing? What do you think? What do you think causes? What are those fears for leaders? Everybody feel like it's easy?
Fear at loss of control.
Loss of control, absolutely. For those that like to have control over everything, yeah, no doubt.
Or that it won't be right.
Yep. Yeah, fear of how they're going to perform, whether it's going to be up to the standard that you would like to have. Fantastic. That's great. I'm going to share with you 3 barriers in addition to those that I believe prevent leaders from empowering others and from actually utilizing the tool of empowerment. The first one is their desire for job security. And these are going to be some personal things that you got to really look inside, because I think it's something that I think that if you look at the heart, right, as we examine the heart, this is stuff that we've got to make sure we come to grips and really work on ourselves that's there. And so that first one, again, is the desire for job security. You see, the number one enemy of empowerment is the fear of losing what we already have. The only way to make yourself indispensable is to make yourself dispensable. Think about that. The only way to make yourself indispensable is to make yourself dispensable. Number 2, resistance to change. You know, our human nature many times is that we don't like change. We like to be comfortable. We like to stay in our routines and what's easier for us. And we just don't like going outside the box or really challenge ourselves too much. We want to make sure we play it safe. And so there is a sense of, for leaders though, that resistance to change, that I don't know if I want to empower somebody else. I like doing it. I like the way that it's happening right now. I've got consistent, performance or consistent achievement in this particular area, and having somebody else may cause it to be different. Well, I think that as leaders, though, we need to make sure that we embrace the fact that change is progress, and great leaders are change agents. We need to make sure we keep that perspective and not allow us to get resistant to change, which many times is a barrier for or to empowerment. And the third one kind of feeds a little bit into the first one, because it goes into that mental, that personal part, though, is that lack of self-worth. You see, it's important for us to make sure that we see the value that we bring, and that, again, we're not going, and I'll talk a little bit about mindset-wise in the next slide that's there. A funny quote that I came across that I thought actually really embodied this particular point, though, of lack of self-worth, was actually made by John Peers. And John Peers made a quick quote that said, "You can't lead a cavalry charge if you keep thinking you look funny on the horse." You got to make sure that, again, it's not about you, that you're not focused in on what you look like, or that you're worried about how people are perceiving you. You need to make sure that you maintain and have a self-worth, a self-value that will allow you then to empower others. You see, what each of those really fall into is this scarcity mindset. Some of you may have heard about scarcity mindset, the difference between scarcity and abundance, but that scarcity mindset really looks at power as being a pie. And I need to make sure that I keep the biggest slice of pie that I can have to myself. So I need to protect it. I need to make sure that I don't give any extra to others. I need to make sure that I have the majority of the pie. I need to protect what I've got. I need to make sure that I've got a hold of that and control that, because I need to make sure that, I can get what I want, or I can push the agenda that I want. And you see, when you look at that scarcity mindset, that's not how it works. You see, great leaders actually gain authority by giving it away. When you look at power and you look at that authority, great leaders gain authority by actually giving it away. You see, when you empower people, you're not just influencing them, you're influencing all the people around them. Now that's impact. That's what we look for in terms of increasing our influence and being a leader, from the heartfelt piece of, again, wanting what's best for others that's there. Again, that dichotomy that's there, that the more you give it away, the more you actually receive, the more you gain in the power part. That's really where scarcity mindset can trick you. It can make you feel like I've got to hold on to it so that I can keep the power that I have, rather than actually understanding that by giving it away, I actually gain power within it. You see, one question I wanted to ask here is about delegation. And I think a lot of times as influencers and as leaders, we think that we're empowering. And I think there's a difference between empowerment and, of course, looking at task-oriented aspects. So a question I've got for you is, I think we all can reflect, and I just ask you to reflect back into a time in which somebody delegated something to you. And that time, it actually felt an honor, like you felt privileged as a time when it was delegated to you. And then contrast that with another time in which somebody delegated something to you and it actually made you feel diminished. It actually demeaned you. And think about what was the difference between making it feel like an honor and that it was an honorable type thing that you felt, wow, this is awesome, versus actually being demeaned through it. What were the differences? What made one thing different than the other part? As you write down an answer right now, or get ready to think through maybe a couple thoughts here, I share that, you know, I've had times in my life though, and I can remember as I was growing as a leader within the organization, that I was a manager, and one of the managers above me actually delegated me to be able to go to one of his meetings. And that ability, or that feeling of, wow, I felt honored that I would be asked to represent the area, the rest of our team in this particular regional area. You know, it obviously took a lot of time, a lot of effort. I had to be prepared. I even had to travel for it. But again, it felt like it was honorable. And yet I can think of other times in which I was asked to do certain things, and it really was the task itself. And in terms of being on a conference call for that same leader for again, representation of it. You'd think that those are actually very similar or the same, but you know, the feeling I had inside was, one, I felt very honored and I felt privileged to be a part of it. And the one, I felt like I kind of was getting used. You know, basically the way that it was presented to me is, and the way I heard in his voice and the way that he asked for it is, it was kind of a waste of his time, but it's okay to waste my time. That was the difference that I felt between two things that were pretty similar, yet I had a different feeling when they got presented to me. Any other examples out there of times in which somebody maybe delegated things to you and you felt actually empowered, you felt honored to be a part of it versus being demeaned, or the other?
One example is that no one else wanted to do it, and it wasn't really that important or would make a difference.
Yeah, we laugh about the short straw, right? You're holding up the straws that are there, and you pulled the short straw, and you know it. So, yeah, nobody else wanted to, no doubt, right? Any other examples? Think and challenge you to just continue to think about that, even after our time together here with our conversation, because I think that what it does is it gives you a perspective to make sure that as you look to delegate to others, in what way, in what presentation, right, is there? Do you make it seem like it's the short straw that they drew, and it's like, look, you lost in the rock, paper, scissors, and so you get to pull and do this particular task? Or again, are you looking at it from an empowerment standpoint and encouraging aspect? It's important, again, to distinguish when are you empowering others and when are you just delegating task-oriented pieces. And it doesn't mean that you don't delegate tasks that are oriented. We've all got businesses that we're leading or groups that we're leading that's through there, and that's important. But the reason why I stress this is that as a leader, as someone who's looking to build your influence in others, it's important for you to distinguish the differences between what your activities are and your actions are. You see, if you think that you're empowering them and you're really just diving over and giving those tasks, you're not being effective, and you're not going to get where you want to go with them. So let's talk a little bit about specifically, what does empowerment mean? You see, first point that I've got in terms of what does it mean though is seeing the potential of the individual and the proper fit for the job. I think that's important as a leader, is making sure that we can do a proper assessment and looking at things to make sure that we're matching people with the right opportunity that's there, what their passions are. So again, seeing their potential and matching them up. Number two, saying words that encourage, equip, and empower that person. Number three, sharing your knowledge, experience, and influence with them. And number four, in terms of what I believe empowerment means is showing to others your belief in and power given to that particular person. So showing that you believe in them and the power. You see, what I would tell you on the flip side of what empowerment isn't, I don't believe that empowerment doesn't mean dumping assignments on subordinates or delegating every conceivable task. Instead of merely giving others something to do, empowerment inspires them to see the person they can be. Leaders empower others only in the context of a committed relationship. This includes modeling leadership behaviors, coaching a winning attitude, and instilling confidence. Again, it's important to know, are you delegating tasks, which sometimes has to happen, or am I pouring into those that are around that are around me to help empower them and grow them? All right. We're going to move to actually how, right? So as we talk about what empowerment is, and we identify that and making sure that we understand what we're looking for and what we're looking to do, it's now putting it into practice. How do we empower others to their potential? The first way, or the first step of empowering others, I believe, is that you got to evaluate them. You see, in evaluation of them, you need to look at 3 particular areas. And you have to do this when in the very beginning of empowering others, as you select those that you're going to empower and grow. You see, authority given too soon to somebody that doesn't have experience can actually set them up for failure, and not giving them the authority or not moving fast enough can actually frustrate them or actually again, demoralize an individual. So having proper evaluation of them is important for you to look at in terms of empowering others. That first point of empowering others is knowledge. You know, what do they need to know as they embark or take on authority for you or on your behalf as, within an organization or a team dynamic that's there? What do they need to know? Also, don't assume that they know what they need to know because I hired them for this particular role or whatever it may be, or I told them this. Make sure that you open up and that you discuss it, that you're clear with those expectations. Make sure, again, that you share with them why those particular responsibilities or tasks that's oriented, why do they fit in the overall mission or the overall goal that's being accomplished? They need to feel that and see that. Second point is the skill. You need to evaluate the skill. And sometimes this can be very difficult, specifically when you're dealing with new team members or people that you've just met. What I would encourage you to look at in the skill aspect and the skill evaluation is look on the outside for different tests that are out there. You can leverage DISC testing, for instance, that can help you understand somebody's, natural behavior or personality that's there. That helps you understand, number one, how you can communicate with them. Number two, it also helps you understand what's natural for them in regards to it. You wouldn't take a high I, social, got to have a lot of fun, and put them in an auditing position in which all they're going to do is look at books and find the odd numbers out as they go through financial statements. That's what I mean by using something like this. Strength Finders is another great one. Again, trying to find out where their strengths are and how you can leverage those for them, because we all feel more empowered. We all feel better when we're actually contributing greatly to the organization. The third point is desire. You see, Jean La Fontaine was quoted in saying that man is made so that whenever anything fires his soul, impossibilities vanish. So you got to make sure that what I'm looking to empower somebody to, where I'm looking to help them grow or to gain or give authority to, that it's in alignment with what their desire is. I can't have it just be my desire. I can't thrust that on them. I've used an old wise tale and many times when talking to folks about this particular point of evaluating and looking at the desire is, and that sometimes you get frustrated as a leader because you're like, oh my gosh, they've got so much potential here. But the old wise tale that my grandpa used to tell me is you can't lead a horse to, or you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. They got to have the desire and that drive. Second step in empowering others is to model for them. You see, even the best need to know what's expected of them. Best way to inform them of this is to show them. I was reminded of a story of a young boy in Colorado on a Colorado ranch in which he climbed up to a very high spot that was there, and he found a nest. He found an eagle's nest. And in that eagle's nest, he found an egg in which he picked up and he carried the egg back to the range. He put that egg underneath the hen and allowed that hen to continue to incubate, to keep it warm throughout it, along with the rest of the other chicken eggs that were there. Till one day that egg actually cracked along with the other chicks. And that eaglet actually woke up and came out of its shell and looked around and began to peck at the ground and try to chirp and make noises and follow all the little chicks around and continue to live. As that eaglet continued to grow and began to tower over these particular chicks, as time progressed though on it, they knew something was odd, until one day they looked up in the sky and they saw another eagle soaring before them. When they saw that, the eagle then spread the wings out and began to fly. You see, people you desire to empower need to see what it looks like to fly. That eagle needed to see what another eagle looked like to fly. That's what those that you're looking to empower need to see from you. You have to model that attitude, work ethic, what you're looking for them to embrace. Take them along for the ride. Things that I've talked about before, or things that I've thought about is the difference of society, and you think about raising of children. You know, back in the day, children actually worked alongside their parents so that they could earn or learn a trade. That's, again, that modeling of them. Now it's not as much, it's not as prevalent. So again, model for them. Let them see how an eagle soars. Third step in empowering others is to give them permission to succeed. You have to help others believe that they can succeed and show them that you want them to succeed. How do you do that? Our first point is expect it. You see, quote from Danny Cox is the important thing to remember is that if you don't have that inspired enthusiasm that is contagious, whatever you do have is also contagious. So again, if you give them that expectation, right, and you project and you're enthusiastic about it, that's going to be contagious. If you're not, it will also be. Second part, verbalize it. You see, you can never tell anybody or tell somebody too much that you believe in them. Tell them often that they're going to make it. Help encourage them along the journey as they stumble through. Not looking at failure as a destination or a final product piece, but as a learning opportunity to continue to grow with. So it's important to, again, verbalize it and that they have permission to succeed. And number three, reinforce it. You see, you can never, again, you can never do too much when it comes to believing in people. Reinforce it, back it up. Fourth step in empowering others is to transfer authority to them. You see, this is the brass tacks. A lot of times as leaders, we find the first three steps is pretty easy to kind of go through because it feels like I'm in control. This is where, and really I am, right? Number one, I like being in control of evaluating and seeing and making sure that the people are in alignment with what I want them to do that's there. You know, again, that second part, again, as we just move through on it, and again, that we're reinforcing and growing and we're mentoring them, we show them the way that's there, what we're expecting of it that's going through. But number four is the brass tacks. Number four is when I'm actually going to give over authority to them. You see, the real heart of empowerment is the transfer of your authority and influence. Again, as I shared earlier, many leaders are willing to give responsibility, delegating tasks, but empowering others is more than just sharing the workload. Peter Drucker says that, quote, no executive has ever suffered because his subordinates were strong and effective. Think about that. No leader, no executive has ever suffered by having their subordinates be strong and effective. Yet, how do we live that out? We know that, right? We know that's true. We want to surround ourselves with the best, but are we living in a manner that is empowering them, or are we trying to harness and not transfer that authority, not give them that power or that ability and that power? The fifth step is to publicly show your confidence in them. Why should you publicly show your confidence in them? Well, I think there's two things, and there's two reasons why. Number one, what it does is it gives public recognition, and that public recognition lets them know that you believe in them. The second part of this, though, is that it also lets others know that you're behind and supporting them as they grow and as you've asked them to embark or grow in their particular authority or oversight over things. Number 6 step in actually how to empower is that you must give feedback, right? Simply or supply them with feedback. Many times, again, we do the first 5 and we send them out ready to go, and then we wait for them to come back to us with their tail between their legs and within a failure that has occurred. And I think that this is the step that's a reminder for us, is to make sure that we supply consistent feedback, especially as they're embarking the beginning of the journey of transferring that power, that authority to them, is making sure that we've got check-ins, that we're going over and looking at how things are progressing, providing honest feedback, being able to pour into them in an honest way, not just frivolous, small, compliments that are meaningless maybe that's there, but heartfelt, right? Looking and identifying specific things that they're growing or they're doing well, and maybe some specific things in which they can improve or have opportunity for growth. So feedback is critical in the steps of empowerment. Number 7, last one, release them to continue their own, or to continue on their own. You see, the ultimate goal should always be to release them to make good decisions and to succeed on their own. I was reminded of a conversation of a particular leader, and it may even be a conversation that you found yourself having inside your head or with someone else, in which they were frustrated and sharing a frustration as a leader, in which after, that there was nothing was worse than identifying somebody that had great talent and skill, focusing in on them, empowering them, equipping them, mentoring them, and growing them, all to find out, or all to come to the conclusion in which they left, and they left them, and how frustrating that was, and how that was the most frustrating thing. And the answer back, though, that was given to that particular leader, and the one that I have to remind myself, and I think you have to remind yourself too, is what's worse than that? Well, I think what's worse than that is actually not mentoring, not equipping, not helping others grow and drive to be their best, and having them stay a part of the team. You see, you don't want people that are just staying status quo, that it's just kind of hanging through. That's not what's going to progress you or have you grow in. And so again, as a leader and as someone that's looking to empower, it's important for us to understand the ultimate goal is, I want them to soar. I want them to fly on their own, right? To be able to make their own decisions that's there. And sometimes, again, I have to constantly keep my own confidence, my own value thoughts of myself in check, because I can't allow that to hold or clip or bound their wings back. I have to be able to let that go. And sometimes it may even mean that I got to let them go, and they're going to move on to another team or another organization. But that truly is what will grow you in your organization. So the contrary of having them stay flat and stay stagnant is far worse than the prospect of having them leave. All right. I'm leaving you, and I want to leave you with 3 questions that I just want you to think, and I thought about having you answer them, and if there's anybody that would like to share about it, please, you can. But I want you to think about this, and I'd like you to write this down inside your notes, because I think it's important for us, again, to continuously have a reflection, as I've talked about in the law of the process, or that first step of increasing your influence in terms of the process, in having time to maybe journal or reflect that's there. But the first question is how would you characterize yourself in the area of self-worth? Are you confident? And do you believe that you have value? I think this is something that we probably all have to continuously keep a tab on, because I think there may be days in which you find yourself more apt to empower others, and other days that you're more apt to hold and restrict and have more of a scarcity mindset. And I think when you look back, or when you dive into those times in which you lean one way or the other, I think what you'll find is that you're probably having a day in which you're trying to control and hold on, in which maybe your confidence is wavered a little bit. Maybe it's shook from that particular person, right, that's there, but maybe it is internal that you need to continue to look at and make sure that you see the value, the self-worth, right, and the confidence that you exude, because that truly, empowerment is truly the greatest gift you can give others as they continue to go. And that last question, or a question that I would ask and end with, though, is that, again, part of that reflection time is after you've evaluated these three particular things, is asking yourself again, am I improving the lives of those around me? Any thoughts or ideas about empowerment that we've discussed today? Whether it be what empowerment was or how the steps in terms of empowerment?
I think it's a quiet Thursday.
It's a quiet Thursday, and that's okay. This will be a great time. I'm going to post these questions and that last question, the 4 questions that I shared with you on Facebook. Love to hear some interaction. Maybe post back your thoughts that's there. Whether you're feeling good, maybe it's a thumbs up that you're feeling good about that, or again, maybe it's an area that you need again to kind of invest in yourself that's there. So again, focusing in on your ability to empower others and how important that is. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'll look forward to, again, continuing our conversations of increasing our influence next Tuesday. So we will see you then, or you'll see me, and hopefully I'll hear from you then. So thanks again. Have a fantastic weekend.